What up, guys? What up? What up? Just getting a few things set up, and we'll get started, man. So we're gonna be talking today, but let me just get this set up real quick. I need to figure out how to do it from within Streamlabs. That's fine. Let's see. We're gonna be talking about AWS Lambda. Oops. AWS Lambda. Let's talk about AWS Lambda. There's something else, but for right now, we'll do AWS Lambda. And let me get this updated, and then we'll get started. Hey, what's up, man? What's up? What's up? How you doing? See Python the developers on. Hey, how's everybody doing today, man? Y'all doing good? I'm doing pretty good, man. A few minutes behind, so just trying to get this set up real quick, and we'll get started, guys. We're gonna be going over some AWS stuff. Pretty much one of the projects that I worked on, which was the Sharepoint. I have some code related to the Sharepoint project. We're gonna use that code, and we're gonna put it into AWS Lambda. And then we'll work on, I think one of the requests, the event bridge, and we'll kind of go through that process. We'll take a look. So, and I guess let me finish with this, and then we'll get started, because the thing with the event bridge, there's the setup. There's some I gotta see on what we could set up first, and there's a setup process as well. So I don't know if we could get through everything today, but I think we should be able to get through the Lambda piece and at least test that out and see if that works. And then from there, of course, we could look into the event bridge. So let's see. But how's everybody doing, man? Y'all doing good today? This Friday? All right, cool. So now that I got this, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get started now. I think I'm good now. Yep, got me some tequila as well, so I'm gonna be drinking some tequila. Hey brother, according to you, if we ship a 2 kilogram parcel in which there is a laptop from US to India, then how much would it cost? I'm not sure how much it will cost for that amount. That I'm not sure. I know I looked into another item. It was like a keyboard size item, little bit of weight, and I looked at the dimensions, the size, and dude, it was a lot. Like the number that I got, unless I was looking at something incorrectly, it was like $325, which is kind of crazy. I think. So, let's see. Oops, wrong screen. Damn it, what was that? All right, let me get my screen updated. Let's see. I don't know why it does that, man. It switches from my primary screen to my monitor on top. So let me fix that right quick. There it goes. Cool. All right, cool. That's much better. All right, so let's go ahead and let me log into AWS. So again, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be taking source code that I already have on a video that I made, which is the Sharepoint downloading file from Sharepoint. And in that source code, we're actually moving we're gonna have to probably do a little bit different now that I think about it, but oops, 6. All right, cool. So let's see. Now that I'm logged in, so I have a few videos. One of the videos that I have related to SharePoint is the. I guess before we get there with that piece, let me open up my tequila. So this is a bottle that I'm gonna be tasting today. So we'll see how good this is or not. See, where's my cup? Damn, this is in here tight. There it goes. Ooh, I can smell it already. It smells good. The Iron Man of AWS. I don't know about that. It smells good. It has a nice, good smell to it. Not too strong, but not too light. Just right in the middle. Dude, this is smooth. This is real smooth. Has very little to no burn. Very smooth, subtle. You could, taste some of the flavors, but it's not too intense either. I like it. Okay. So just out of curiosity, which video were you looking at? Were you looking at the one, my video related to downloading from SharePoint and then uploading to S3? I'm assuming, was that the video you were looking at? I'm assuming that's the one you were looking at, anyways. Because that's the one that makes sense right now to do. So let me go ahead and connect to my GitHub. Which one is it? Oh, there we go. They're here. Python SharePoint files to AWS S3. Yes, this is it. Okay, so and we do have some third-party packages here, which is going to be these guys, which is fine. All right, so let me clone this. I'm going to have to clone this project. So I guess before we even get started, you mentioned a few things, right? One of the things you mentioned was Lambda, which I think that's perfect what we want to do here, to run the code at will, right? Because that's where Lambda is very good on, just running certain, executing, code that you have to do some kind of task, right? In this case, we wanted to download and move it to an S3 bucket. So that's like perfect for that. Now, what you mentioned was the event bridge, right? So I haven't really done any kind of work, but I have read upon this a little bit, and it does have some capabilities when it comes to, based on what I was reading. I'm trying to see if it has it where you can connect to certain applications, like like SaaS platforms, and ultimately based on, again, here's a good example, like Shopify, when there's like a new order perhaps or something of that sort, the event bridge, because it's connecting to it, it's able to determine that, and then that's where you could have your Lambda function execute, or that's kind of the goal, I'm assuming, right? Where you could have using Lambda, send events from the app to Lambda for data processing. So that's kind of where I think you got the idea from. The thing that we would have to look into is if, and that's why I say we do this last, because Lambda, the main piece, you got to have Lambda working regardless if this is able to work or not. But, we could look into this after the fact to see if there is any connections perhaps to like a SharePoint. I'm assuming there probably is. I'm not sure, right? I never really had a need to do this, but we'll play around with this after the fact. Let's go ahead and we'll start off with Lambda first. All right, so let me go back. I don't need to be in here. Let's go to Lambda. Also from scratch, build a Lambda application from sample code and configure. I emailed you the link. Okay, there goes Microsoft data with AWS Glue. Microsoft SharePoint. Okay, so it does have, which is awesome, right? If it had that but so what, I did read this, and I think what I saw here, I don't think it's that straightforward though. One of the things that I noticed is it is using Glue into the process, and I believe it was using Cloud Foundation setup as well. So maybe we could look at this image here, where it does have an AWS Glue job. Ultimately, that's what it seems like. Now, this is interesting to see because I did not realize that AWS Glue even had the ability to connect to SharePoint. In this post, we walk through the solution to set up an AWS Glue job to ingest SharePoint list. So on top of that, this is talking about a SharePoint list. I'm assuming documents will potentially should be the same thing. Yeah, there it goes. List and files. Yep. So that's fine. To S3 bucket in the AWS Glue workflow. Which again, that's actually very interesting because I actually was not aware. At least I didn't see it. Like I use AWS Glue, and I did not see a So let me go back. Cause here's the thing: if this works, where did I see it? Was it here? If this piece works here, there is no need to have Lambda to run that code. Cause the code the one that I did in my YouTube video, that is more so to again pull files from SharePoint and load it to an S3 bucket. Which Lambda can do, because again, it's a functional process, a serverless functional service, and that's it could execute the code, but I don't think there's no need for it, and that's why when we look at this, we don't see any of that. Now, what I'm kind of curious is this piece where we have, after it goes into S3 bucket, you do have your cloud trail, and then you have your event bridge. And then this is where we're doing some preprocessor and so on. So this is interesting because I'm wondering if it doesn't seem to be listening to the SharePoint. At least I don't think. I mean, we would have to see how that process actually flows. So let's see how they're doing it. Create an AWS Glue. Pretty much a Python. It's a Python script job to make a RESTful API call to the SharePoint server and ingest files. Oh, okay. So this is really where, I mean, this is the equivalent of no different than like your Lambda action. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Create a workflow, a Glue workflow with a starting trigger of event types. Let's see, configure CloudTrail to log data events such as put objects, API calls, create a rule in the event bridge to forward the put objects API events to AWS Glue when they are unmuted. Add AWS Glue events driven workflow as a target to the event bridge rule. The workflow gets triggered when the SharePoint ingests AWS Glue jobs. So this is what I thought as well too. So I think the way this trigger works, based on what I could tell so far reading this piece right here, and this is what to me makes it more sense that it would work that way, that you're pretty much pulling files from SharePoint to an S3 bucket, but when they land on S3, that is where your the event bridge comes into play. Because what it seems like when based on this statement here, I don't, again, and that to me makes more sense. It's not reading in SharePoint, oh, there's new files. It seems to be more based off you're pulling files from SharePoint and you're dropping it to S3. Once you drop it to S3, it's able to tell, is there new files? Is there something, I guess, like added to it, right? A new file that got dropped. So assuming that you have one bucket and you're just adding on to that bucket, right? 5 files today. Next week you have 10 files. Next week you have 15 files. It just keeps accruing. As new files are dropped into your S3 bucket, that is where the event bridge is able to determine, hey, there's new files in there, and then it creates a trigger. So not off of, I don't think it's going to be off SharePoint. That's not what I'm getting out of this, which for me, that makes more sense because that's where I was kind of like, it's kind of odd that it would actually be able to determine in SharePoint that there's a new file or modified file or whatever. file that has been modified or a new file. Um, so let's see. So here's the thing: we'll walk through this, but I'm just something just kind of keep in mind, right? And this is more of a this is just to my own experience. Well, I mean, you may have a need case for this, and that's fine. We'll walk through it to kind of test it out, but just something to think about though as well. Like when it comes to your process on how, let's say, you're trying to do it internally in the organization that you work for. I guess the first question becomes the data that you're trying to pull from SharePoint, and in order to load it eventually, what it sounds like to me, to some sort of data warehouse or something of that sort. Is that for like BI reporting, analytics? Like what's the main purpose, right? And so you don't have to tell me, but just something to think about. Like what's the main purpose behind what are you trying to accomplish? Most of the time, like I say most, a good portion of the time when you're dealing with like business analytics for reporting, things of that nature, most of the time that data doesn't have to be or isn't live data, right? So it's not like as soon as the data gets updated, and let's say in SharePoint, like if it got updated at 9:25, that now that data needs to make it to the data warehouse in the next 5 minutes because somebody's going to query off of it. Data that needs to be more live like that, of course, is more when you're client facing, which is again when you're dealing with maybe clients of some sort of application, and then ultimately they need to see their results or their streaming data, right? That's a lot of like social media platforms, all of that. You get real-time data back and forwards of new likes and all, different statuses that are happening within your videos or messages and so on. But when you're dealing with data, like again for reporting or analytics, most of the time, again, I'm not saying all the time, most of the time, those processes are not necessarily live. And again, that's just to my experience. I have actually went to other companies, more like as a guest, like big company like pharma. I'm just picking like pharma for right now because I have actually worked with some pharma companies that do a lot of big data analytics, and a lot of their processes and stuff. None of them is pushing live data or real time data, for example, to customer. A lot of the process of what happens is, there's changes into, let's say, files, like files get updated or changes throughout the day. Then at the end of the night, normally these jobs, they run at night. And then that's where all the processing run, the ETL processing, right? The applying business rules and, business logic and, your transformations, and ultimately get it all ready, pushed out to the data warehouse. And then it's ready for the next day. Whenever they come in 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, or whatever it is, now they have data from the previous day, type deal. Normally, that's how I have seen it work with most companies. Again, when you're dealing with like analytical type reporting data, if you're dealing with that kind of data, I know it may sound good, like, hey, we want the data updated into the data warehouse or wherever you're gonna put the data into, like right away. At the end of the day, it just depends on the business case, right? Is there a need by you updating it that fast? For example, are people using that data, I guess? Because if they're not even using it at that speed, then there's really no need to like over-engineer something. I guess what I'm trying to say, to make it be that level. Trust me, I have done it before where in my mind, I think of, well, what about this? Or what if somebody needs it for this? And so on. So ultimately it ends up being something, a basic process gets over-engineered, takes a lot more extra hours, time, effort, complexity, all that stuff. And then what ends up happening is like, oh, well, nobody look at the data anyways till the next day. So it could have been something very basic, easy, where just something that runs at night and it's just pulls in the data that it needs to pull in, process it, load it to the data warehouse, and then it's good for them in the morning type deal. But again, we'll walk through the process, on Because in my mind, something like this, um, if you're trying to trigger the ETL process to run right away when there happens to be new data, that ultimately means you're trying to get the data over to the data warehouse as soon as possible. But just keep in mind, is there like what is the besides the oh we want it? What is the actual use case for that? You know, because if it's something that really can wait till the next day, then what I have seen a lot of companies do, and it's kind of more standard in ways, is all of their processes run at night. And the reason why they run at night is there's very little activity going on, you know, throughout in the nighttime. So instead of having incurring more costs of having a lot of intense processes running throughout the day, and you know like normal processes like you know business BI applications and whatever other services they're using, and then on top of that, you if you're processing a lot of data, you know, throughout the day, then you become very resource heavy, which means you're going to be potentially spending more money. So what companies do, and it makes sense on why they do it this way, not just to save money, but a lot of the time it's like, well, they don't need the data. It could wait till the next day. They wait till the end of the day, all the resources are not being utilized. Then that's where all of their jobs run, you know, at midnight or whatever, 1 in the morning, and they just start processing all of the data. And some of the companies that I have dealt with, worked with actually, they're processing like hundreds of millions to even billions of transactions, you know, every night when they run their jobs. And it takes those jobs takes a while too. Some of them take 2, 3, up to like 5 hours to process. Um, so again, just one of those deals. I mean, if you don't, if your business does not need the data like in real time, then a lot of the times you could just build a process that would just be on schedule, right? And it'll keep things simple and clean, which means you know you it runs maybe at midnight, or you could have it run twice a day. It runs one in the middle of the day, then one at night. It just depends, but just kind of keep that in mind. It's all. I mean, it's not. It's good to learn if you ever need to do it. It just when it comes to applying it, you wanna also, you know, a lot of the times you don't want to over engineer something that doesn't need to be over engineered unless there's a true use case for it. So that's it. Um, so let's see. So I see what they're doing here. This AWS glue job that they're talking about. This you could generate a Python. Pretty much is a Python script that runs, and it's no different than using Lambda. So it's kind of interesting because I actually used this probably once or twice in Glue, but most of the time I never really thought about using it as a replacement for Lambda. But the more I think about it now, I mean it does the same thing, right? That Lambda does for the most half. So um, I think the difference, though, no, I don't know. That's the difference. I guess it does do the same thing. I think the difference would be that I could think of would be in Lambda. I know for sure you could install third-party packages. You got to tweak it, but you could get third-party installed. I'm not sure about third-party packages being installed on AWS Glue Python shell script. So that's I'm not sure. We can take a look at that. What else? Glue workflow, a data processing pipeline that compromises of a crawler, job, and triggers. Um, Database, which is straightforward. Yep. Okay, then you do have a Lambda function inside this whole process. The Lambda function is used as an AWS cloud formation custom resource to copy job scripts from an AWS Glue managed repository to a big data blog S3 bucket. So I'm wondering. I think this is a piece where it's kind of pretty much recording your like activity, and I think based on the activities, it's able to kind of tell if there's any changes, like new files or anything that occur, and if there is, it could process those files that are in there. Um, So we could do two things. We could walk. So just FYI, this process, it is using AWS Lambda, but it's not using it to execute the Python code at all. It's actually more going to be more so related to this, which again, this. Let's take a look at it. Um, let me see. If you custom resource, you copy the job scripts from AWS manage. Okay, so this does this automatically already. I'm not sure why they include that. Whenever you create an AWS glue job, that's what it's doing already. But I'm wondering if it's put into a bucket. But I think what they're doing here, they're setting up that cloud data set name, enter Sharepoint list name of the file or the file name you want to ingest. So you got lists, files, Sharepoint URL. Let's see. The event pattern shows that this rule is triggered when the S3 bucket is uploaded to whatever bucket, and that's what it is. Okay, so yep, that causes the trigger, which makes sense. This is all related to whatever when something gets inserted into an S3 bucket. Capture on a put object, API calls made. In the target section, glue workflow. There it goes. So it's executing this glue workflow. So that's what it's doing. Let me go back up. You want to make sure what they're doing, at least to me in a way, makes sense. Like all the steps make sense and why they're doing what they're doing. So in here, what is this? Okay, workflow name. So pretty much creating a workflow, a data process pipeline that it compromised. Okay, this workflow converts uploaded data files into Apache Parquet formats, which is fine. Parquet format's always faster anyways when you're dealing with. So the thing with Parquet format, it's good when you're dealing with large data sets. It's actually kind of bad. When I say bad, it's kind of slow when you're dealing with small files. But it's good when you're dealing with like millions or even billions of records. The bucket names, you provide a bucket name, database name, AWS Glue Data Catalog database that is used to hold a table created in this walkthrough. Other parameters, Sharepoint client ID for files, Sharepoint client ID for list. So these must be, yeah, I'm going to say these are like custom values that they're just creating. So the files list, then you got same thing, secret, So in my mind, though, if they're asking for client ID and secret ID, doing it this way means you were probably going to have to connect to your SharePoint via client and secret IDs, keys, which means those are going to have to be you're going to have to get those through probably your admin, SharePoint admin, um, to either create a user or in order to generate those keys. Then if we look down, we have database name, SharePoint list name, SharePoint file URL, then the tenant ID. Same thing that you're gonna have to receive probably from your admin. You may be able to get it, but for sure your admin would be able to provide that. On the next page, review details. We need to make sure we have an IAM created with all the proper configuration. It takes a few minutes to stack creation, blah blah blah. Let's see. Then we get to the event bridge. Event bridge makes sense. This is straightforward. Pretty much, it's reading. Where do they have the bucket at? Bucket name. There it goes. SharePoint ETL. Key data. SharePoint raw. And then ultimately looking for put objects. And based off that, it's going to execute something. And in this case, it's going to execute this workflow. So this workflow down here, SharePoint trigger data conversion workflow, we're actually using it up here. See where it specifies provide workflow name. What it doesn't do, though, at least I didn't see it, is maybe I missed that. I should have probably went back up a little bit. Configure SharePoint server authentication details. So we'll review this right now in a minute. I'm gonna see if they talked about the workflow. There it goes, event-driven workflow. Unlike traditional relationships, blah blah blah. Let's see. AWS Glue supports event-driven workflows. To get started, you simply create a AWS Glue trigger of type event and place it in the first trigger of your workflow. Without event batching, the AWS Glue job workflow is triggered every time an event bridge rule is matched. So that's seems straightforward. So they just go to our AWS Glue. So we have workflows in here. Now, but the thing about it, if I go to add a workflow, I want to see if it has it in here or not. So let me just do test. Let me go to job. Legacy job. Technically, I already have a job here, which is fine. Let me go to edit job. Let me see. So let me try something else. Let me go to alright, let's go back to what we're looking at. Okay, get started, create an AWS Glue. To get started, you simply create an AWS trigger, okay, of event type and place it as the first trigger in your workflow. You can optionally specify a batch condition. Without event batching, the AWS Glue workflow is triggered every time an event bridge rule matches. Oh, that's what they're doing here. Okay, so it's really what they did here was create a trigger. I'm just calling it test trigger. Frequency would be, so here's our event bridge event. Here's our job to add. So that's odd. I wonder why it doesn't give me the option to pick that. Let's just do for right now weekly, pick Monday. That's fine. We're going to add this job to this trigger. That should be fine. Enable trigger, finish. So what I want to see now, if I go to my workflow, so that's all. I'm trying to think, how do we get the, there we go, add a trigger. Okay, I knew that. I'm gonna say, man, they didn't show up here, which is kind of odd. So I guess it's down here. So add a trigger, which will be this trigger that we created. Enable. Yep. Okay. So now that we have a workflow, which is that, and we'll do another one that's better. I do want to kind of walk through. I want to make sure this makes sense. So far it does, but so you create a trigger. And ultimately, the trigger is connected to a AWS workflow, which we just added right now. You could technically add more triggers. Yep, you could add another trigger, so different triggers, so multiple triggers, right, on one workflow, which makes sense. Like in this case, you could add a crawler, but again, the way you do it though is, so like this square is the job, and then this little icon is the crawler. But you don't, the way you add it, you have to put everything in the form of triggers first, which means if we had a crawler to run, we would need to put that in the form of a trigger. And then ultimately we add triggers here and they all connect. I'm not sure why they did it that way, but I mean, I guess that's the way to do it. Okay, so that makes sense. AWS Glue protects you by setting default limits that restrict the number of concurrent runs. You can increase it. Okay, each batch allows you to configure a number. All right, so that's cool. For example, you can trigger your workflow when 100 files are uploaded in S3 or 5 minutes after the first upload. We recommend configuring event batching to avoid too many concurrent workflows and optimize resource usage and costs. And that's something just to keep in mind too, right? If cost is something that you want to keep minimal, if you're running it every 5 minutes, depending on how you have your server set up, like your job set up, but if you have it set up, for example, I have this one set up at the minimal. If I were to go to my job and I just take a look at it right quick, if I go back down to my security configuration, see where it says number of workers and work type? Work type is standard. By default, if you don't pick standard, it's going to be memory intense jobs, which means you're using more resource, you're going to be paying more. And also by default, the number of workers is 10. So for every run that you do, depends on how long it takes, but I just assume it takes like 2 minutes to run. For every time you run it, it's going to cost you probably a good $1 or so, maybe a little bit more, $1.25 per run. So if you're running the job, like, or you have triggers in place to be like, hey, we got new files, and there's different files being dropping in every 10, 15, 30 minutes, that means your job's going to be running a lot, multiple times an hour. So you want to make sure to set your work type and, based on what you need, right? My case, the whatever I'm processing is very small. Like, for when I say small, small in my mind means 10,000, 50,000 rows, even 100,000 rows, even that's small. So if you're dealing with that kind of data, I will try to limit it to a minimum as you can to avoid paying so much. If you're dealing with large workloads, like files that have billions of records in it, depending on, um, I would recommend actually to at least up the workers and test it out, see how long it takes. Maybe it takes an hour, and I don't know what the cost is going to be, but if it costs an hour, it may be a couple of dollars, right, to run, to run that job. So again, if that job is running too many times, costs could easily creep up. So just keep that in mind, right? So going back to when the batch condition is met, a workflow run is started. Okay, that makes sense. Event batching allows you to configure the number of events. Okay, so this piece, so let's look at that real quick. If I go to event bridge, let me put a star on it. Let's open this up in a new window. So let's just go ahead and create a rule. I guess before we create a rule, let me go to my S3 bucket. Okay, so I have this SFTP, and then we have this Apple, that one that we were playing around with before. And then I have inbound. So let's do that. So if I go to event bridge, I'm gonna create a rule. Let's just call it Apple new files. A watcher for when Apple drops new files to S3. Alright, we can leave that. Run schedule. Nope, not schedule. Run a rule. Hit next. AWS event or event bridge partners. Let's see. Select the event source from which events are sent. AWS services, that's fine. You can reference the sample event when write the event pattern, or use the sample event to test if it matches. So I think this is going to be, if we go down, I think I saw it when they talk about the setup for this is the event pattern. They don't provide that as a sample though, do they? Nope. Let me see, there's the event sample. Filter by event source. Let's say S3 object. Let's see. Object storage class changes. Delete, restore, created. So what would this be? Let's see, what do they call it here? So this is data type AWS API call via Cloud Trail. The event shows that the rule is triggered when an S3 object is uploaded to that. Okay, so let me go back. This is update. Oh, there it goes. This guy right here. AWS API call via trail. Okay, so there it goes. This is it. Oh, this is a sample anyways. So let's see how the sample actually looks. Let me copy this and let me paste this in Sublime Text. And let's take a look at it. Nope. Yeah, that's not what I wanted. JSON. There it goes. Okay. So here's our resource. Here's our bucket. Here's our bucket. Account ID. Event type. Recipient account ID. Let me see what they had in their documentation. Just kind of curious. So they do have something similar to what we, I mean, way more condensed, I believe. Data type, details type, my bad. So details type is that. Source, AWS 3, so that's fine. They didn't have account details or none of that stuff. So we got details. So I'm gonna try to mimic what they have. I think a lot of this we probably don't need. I don't think there's a need anyways. So we'll see if we need it. We'll bring it back. If not, so let's kind of get it set up to their setup. All right, event source. Where's the event source at? Account ID, account key access. Again, I don't think we need this. I believe it should be able to run, but again, we'll see if I need to bring this back, I will. So we could remove this. What am I looking for? Event source. There we go, the event source. S3, yep, request parameters. I don't need event time. Required parameters. Where's required? There it goes, this guy here. So we got bucket name. So for bucket name, what's my bucket? This guy. Again, I don't need this, don't need that. I don't need this either. Let's see, what else? Bucket name, then after that, just it's the key prefix, which seems to be the subfolder on where it's going to be this guy here. So I don't need this guy either. A lot of this I do not need, don't need. We'll see about this, if I need this or not, this resource type. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I know they don't have that here. So event name, where's the event name at? Event type. Let me make sure I didn't delete it. Event type, event name, put object. So let's look at this guy then. So key, inside the key we have prefix, data, Sharepoint, raw. So let's kind of do what they're doing here. So we would do All right. This folder, I believe I called Apple. So the bucket and then the folder inside, which is called Apple. Then I think I called it inbound. So that would be it. This we don't need. I think we don't need none of this. Event name, put object. Alright, so let's try this. Let's do enter my own. Valid, prettify, yep, so that's fine. Let's make sure Apple inbound, is that what it is called? Apple, oh, it's capital I. All right. Oh, and also yeah, I need to put the square brackets. It's in the list format. So let's try that. All right, cool. So let's see. Event pattern. Okay, I don't need this. Let's go back to where was I looking at? Damn, did I lose? There we go. Let me go back to, I don't know what happened to it. Must have closed out of it. So let's see. Okay, so this makes sense. Event pattern. This is looking for this folder. Put objects API call when relay in the target section of the workflow. Okay, so now let me go back. Let's see what it is. To create an event pattern or filter your specify the field of the event that you want the event pattern or filter to match. For event patterns or filter to match on events, the event must contain all the fields name listed in the event pattern. This field name, event pattern has the same structure as events that match. Roles use event pattern to select events and send to target. In event bridge, it is possible to create rules that lead to infinite loops where a rule is fired repeatedly. For example, a rule might detect that ACLs have changed on the S3 bucket. It triggers software to change them to the desired state. If the rule is not written correctly, the subsequent changes to the ACL fires, the rule again create an infinite loop. To prevent this, write the rules so that the trigger actions do not refire the same rules. For example, you could fire only if ACLs are found to be in a bad state instead of after any changes. Okay, so let's see. We'll bypass this for now. Let's go hit next. Okay, so this cannot be empty. Let's see, what are we dealing with here? AWS API, all events. Build on event pattern to match all events from the services. Hit next. Target type. Select an event bridge. Event buzz, event bridge API, desired SaaS partner or other AWS services. Let me see. No, when using Event Bridge console, Event Bridge will automatically configure the proper permissions for the selected target. If you are using AWS COI command line interface, SDK, you need to configure the proper permissions. Type target, Event Bridge, Event Bus, AWS services. Select an AWS Event Bridge, Event Buzz, Event Bridge API for SaaS partners or other. Let's see. A target where an event is set when it matches the event pattern of the rule. You can select AWS resources as the external API destination. For example, if you want to have an AWS Lambda function run every time an AWS S3 object is uploaded, you'll select the Lambda function as target of the. Got it. So in our case, probably would be a glue workflow. Glue workflow name, which is test. Yep, that's the one that we created initially, just called test. Which is, where's my workflows? Boom, right there, test. Execute row, event bridge needs permission to send events to the event bus of the above AWS account. By continuing, you are allowing us to do so. Create a new row for the specific resource. So in this case, it will just create a row for you that should have access to Glue. If you don't want to do that, you want to create your own rows, of course, create it first, then just use existing and find it in the drop down. But for what we're doing, I'm just going to have it create one for me. Additional settings, you can customize the text from an event. That's fine. Max age of event, the maximum number of hours to keep unprocessed events for. The default value is 24 hours. Retry, dead letter quote, that's fine. So I'm hit next. Tags, no tags. Okay, let's create rule. Rule has been created. Okay, so that's cool. So now is there any kind of monitoring to know if it's being executed? Replays. Start a replay to reprocess past events. Nope. Okay, so let's see if it actually works. If I go to my S3 bucket, inbound, let me drop a new file in here. Let me drop what I probably need, though. I think I'm gonna need this file if it tries to process this. So let me download this and create one called this would be for April. And then let's drop it. Upload. Let's go to AWS Glue console. Let's see if there's anything running. This was last run. Yep, can't tell from here. Let's go to Studio. AWS Glue Studio. Monitor. Job rate. So nothing's running as of right now. Alright, let's go back to Event Bridge. Can we tell, how do we tell if something got executed, I guess? Hold on, let's see what's happening here. Our rule, there it goes. Here's our rule. Here, let me check this out. Watch for, okay, yep. Hold on, let me go back. What was the previous? Rule with an event pattern. A rule that runs when an event matches default pattern. Event bridge sends events to a specific target. Okay, which makes sense. Enable the rule on the select event bus. Hey, what happened to this? There's nothing in here. What the? Okay, next. 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 Update rule. Let me go back. Alright, something's happening here. What's happening here? You can define, so this is not saving. You don't have to select or enter a sample event, but it recommends so you can reference it when writing and testing the event patterns. You could reference the sample events when write to a pattern. Or use the sample events to test if they match the events. Okay, let's see. AWS events, event bridge, partner events. So Salesforce is the only one right now that I see for that. AWS events, which there's a good amount, and this is what I initially had here. So let's see what's showing in here. This is not the bucket name. This is not the key. So I do think this is my information, though I don't know why it has these generic buckets. S3. Where is it? There it goes. So let's see, resource, S3 objects, S3 bucket. So the bucket is this. The objects would be Apple, inbound. Let's see, read true events. Let me leave that. So now same thing, we're gonna have our buckets. We have our bucket and our key. So let's try that. Event name, get objects, lock, legal hold. Let's call it Apple. Let's see, access key, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let me save it and let's see if it saves. Dude, what the hell? Sample events. You don't have to select. Why is it not? So let's go back to what we were looking earlier. You can now see the CSV file in the raw prefix in your S3 bucket. Now the workflow should trigger on the AWS console side, run in. And that's what they're doing here. They're doing a few things. They're doing a trigger. Sharepoint trigger data. This is another trigger. So let me go back. Their SharePoint is called, I mean, their S3 bucket is called data SharePoint table name raw. What do they call this? Data SharePoint raw. Why did they put table in here? The event pattern shows that the rule is triggered when an S3 object is uploaded to. That must be a typo because that's not it. It shows data SharePoint raw. Either way, that's fine. CloudTrail captures the put object API call made and okay, so let's go back some. So let's look at this. Again, where's my form? It's asking for a name. Template source, selected template generates an AWS S3 URL where to be stored. Let's see. SharePoint trigger data conversion workflow. Oh, what the hell? I just realized why. Okay, let me go back. Template is ready. Oh, this must be using a specific template. That's what it's doing. Okay, never mind. I don't want to do that. New resource. Oh, I see what it's doing. Okay. Template resource. Select a template. Generates an AWS S3 URL where it would be safe. Okay, so when I do new though, it does not do that. This is blank. So getting started because you can use AWS Cloud to launch many different types of resources. The getting started walkthrough will touch on a few samples. Let's see. Is that what it's doing here though? Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Pretty much, I get it. It's a template that has all the settings in place. When in this case, it has specifying the bucket name, SharePoint, client ID file, so on and so on. This is a piece that just does not make sense, though. That's why I'm trying to make sense of it. Review the event bridge. Okay, so it created a rule to forward S3 put objects API events to AWS Glue. Oh, is that what it did? Data SharePoint raw. Where did that come from? It had to come from over here somewhere. Data SharePoint raw. So let's see. View and designer. I want to see what this is. What's in here? A serverless event-driven workflow to ingest, process, SharePoint list files using AWS Glue. To store data, CloudTrail logs, job scripts, and any temporary files generated during the AWS Glue ETL job run. Okay, a data processing pipeline that is comprised of a crawler job trigger. This workflow converts uploaded data files into Apache Parquet format. Okay, that's fine. bucket name, script. So this seems to be a sample template they provided. Where would that be? So this is the row. Run the AWS Glue job that has permissions to download the script. Let me lower down the temperature. Man, it's actually getting kind of warm in here. All right, cool. So let's see, to launch it, sign in, launch stack, next. For bucket name, enter a unique name of your new S3 bucket. So this is going to create a bucket. That's pretty much what this is doing, because that's really what it is. This is pretty much a set of configuration of what it's going to do. It's going to create a bucket. So leave workflow name and database name as default. So again, it seems like that's going to create a database perhaps. For dataset name, enter Sharepoint list name or file name you want to ingest. Which again, I don't like that, because it makes it seem like when you're downloading a folder, you want to download all the files, not one. So that's where that to me does not quite make sense. You review the details, the final page. It takes a few minutes. You can run the ingested AWS Glue job either on schedule or on demand. As the job successfully finished, the ingest data to the raw prefix of the S3 bucket. The AWS Glue job runs transform the adjusted raw CSV file into a Parquet file and loads them to the transform prefix. Okay, which that makes sense. Okay, so this is actually creating the event bridge. I created this manually, but going through the process, this created one for me. So now I'm just kind of curious. Let me go back. Where's the one that they had? I guess it's this one here. Let me hit yes, leave. Let me close out of it. Let me go back to where I was at. Let me close out of this. Let me go to their stack. So let's take a look at this, right? So I'm gonna hit next. They just Sharepoint ETL is fine. Let's leave it like that for now and see if it creates a bucket. Cause I think that's what should happen. It should end up creating this is never mind. This is used to store data, CloudTrail log, job scripts, any temporary files. So they just call it Sharepoint storage. We'll leave the rest the same. Sharepoint list name. Yeah, this is weird. I'm still not sure about this in ways, but they just kind of follow what they did. back, notifications. That's fine. Next. We have our parameters. I really appreciate you explaining every service, exploring every little bit. So far, so good. You always get it to work. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll figure it out, right? Just so, and that's the thing with AWS. Um, AWS has a lot of services. Like it literally has probably about over 100 different services. Some of them you may not ever touch, you may not ever use, but there's all kinds of stuff related to AWS. I'll tell you right now, I have been dealing with AWS for couple of years now. And there's a lot of them that I have not touched either, right? Like good example, AWS Transfer Family. That the video that I made and us exploring, that was the first time I ever touched it. Never touched it before. It just depends, right? A lot of services is based on a use case. When there's a need for it, then of course that's when you touch it, and it becomes beneficial. But again, that's part of the learning process, right? We're not born knowing how to do things. It's the whole when it's due to learn how to learn it. That's where the true what's the word I'm looking for? That's what matters, right? That is where can you learn it, right? Can you explore? And that's the way I learn. I learn by trial and error. I do research. I read some of their documentations. I try different things. Eventually, most likely we'll get things to work, and then it'll make more sense on how things work. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to walk through even their steps that they're providing. Some of it didn't make sense. Some of it started to make more sense. As we explore, because that's my thing with me. Whenever I, especially if I'm learning something new, I could easily follow the directions and just do it, and let's just say magically works. But I actually want to understand why is it working that way. What's making it work that way? Because if I understand, it makes it that much easier. Next time I need to do it again, I'm good to go. Unable to fetch parameters, which I'm from parameter store for this account, which that made sense to me. And this is a piece, so I'm still a little bit confused where I'm trying to make sense over, because they don't really explain that piece. Let's see. So pretty much what CloudFormation is think of it as, a configuration file, and by you executing that configuration file, it'll do X, Y, and Z. It'll create buckets, it'll create services, it'll do this and this and all that for you, which comes in handy, right? Especially if you have processes that relates to we're gonna create a new bucket for this client, a new events, new jobs, and all that. Well, having something packaged in there, and the only thing you change is perhaps the variables, like the new bucket, a different bucket, and so on. You could execute that configuration, and it'll create those buckets and all that for you. That's pretty much what it's doing. The piece that I'm not 100% sure about is we have these parameters, right? And they kind of, when you look at it, kind of tells you what it's for. Like this one says this is used to store data, but again, it's a bucket name, so it's pretty straightforward, right? Bucket name, you could, I believe to my understanding, you will put whatever the new bucket is, it'll create it for you. Then you have this guy, the AWS Glue Data Catalog database that is used to hold the table created in this walkthrough. Again, same thing. This one should create a new catalog database. Now this is the one where I'm not 100% sure, where it says other parameters. So we have Sharepoint client ID for files. So if I go back to this, it's like these guys here. what I'm trying to see, like, how do they know to specify SharePoint? Where is that coming from? Um, Client ID file, SharePoint client ID for files. So again, based on the value that it had, it's coming. What it says, what data lake, glue ingested, SharePoint client ID files. Again, that really does not make sense, and it does not explain in the example that they use for that. Like this example, I mean, it shows that's what they use, but it doesn't explain. It doesn't tell me how that came to be. Then of course they run. It just says it takes a few minutes. So let me go back. Maybe I missed a step. So if I go back, here it goes. So choose create parameters. There you go. I knew I missed a step, so I did miss a step. So this step would be configure SharePoint server authentication details. Before launching CloudFormation Stack, you need to set up your SharePoint server authentication details, namely tenant ID, secret ID, so on, and the SharePoint URL in AWS Site Manager Parameter Store, yeah, blah blah blah. To make sure to create, go to AWS System Manager. All right, so let's go there. AWS System Manager. So let's see, I never used this before. So what is gain operational insights into AWS and on-prem resources, how it works. So let's see, AWS Systems Manager. AWS System Manager is to secure end-to-end management solutions for hybrid cloud environments. So this seems to be kind of like the middleman of connecting, whether it be on, that's what it seems like, either authenticating external systems with internal resources like AWS resources. So it's kind of like the bridge to either store your like client ID, secret ID, a lot of that information in here, and then ultimately you could kind of use it throughout your processes, it seems like. So let's just see exactly what this consists of. Is the operational hub for AWS application and resources, and it's broken into 4 core groups: application management, operational management, change and node management. Use case: aggregate data in a single console and gain actionable insights. Cloud, blah blah blah. Let's see, implement best practice. No, let's see. Okay, so let's go to get started. How it works: group your resources, group your AWS resources, and save them into a resource group. View insights, see relevant operational data, dashboard about your group resources, take actions. Quick security access, quickly and security access your Amazon EC2 instance through an interactive one-click browser-based shell or through the AWS without the need to open inbound ports, maintain hosts, manage SS keys. So that's kind of interesting because that's what I use. I use SS keys a lot whenever I connect to my resources. So it seems like this one must store some of those keys, and it just like access your remote connection through the browser, which is pretty cool. Especially whenever I'm like, at least in my case, I'm working remote. Parameter store, centralized hierarchy stored for managing secrets and plain text data. This is, I think, what we're going to be using here is parameter store. So let's take a look at this parameter store. Parameter store, secrets and configuration data management. That makes sense. So that's kind of going back to what they had to do here. There we go. See, parameters. To create your AWS System Manager parameters, complete the following steps. On the System Manager console under Application Management, yep, there it goes, parameter store. That makes sense. That's exactly what it is. Then inside the parameter stores, we're going to be storing. So think of these as variables. You're pretty much passing in variables to, again, your processes, your services, wherever you're using it. And then ultimately it's gonna take in those secret keys and client ID or tenant ID, whatever it needs it, right? Whatever it's looking for, it's gonna take all of that in. It's gonna get stored into there. So let's go ahead and get this set up. So let me move this to the side for now, and let's create some parameters. So the first one, you know what? I'm gonna have to log in. Let me log into SharePoint. I need to get this information from my SharePoint account. So let me log into SharePoint. So let me see, where do I get that information? This is probably going to be under, I'm trying to think. Probably my, let me see. So I'll show my screen in a minute. I do want to make sure there's nothing sensitive that I'm showing, but if everything's fine, then I'll show, so you kind of see what I'm trying to find. So let me see. Let me go to my admin section. I don't think it's gonna be under admin. I think it's gonna be under my Azure portal. Not Azure portal, but my what is it called? So yeah, I'm under admin. Let me go to SharePoint. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be under here either. So let me go to, I believe it's gonna be under Azure Active Directory, maybe. No, security. I think it's under the security admin center for security. So let me try that. Damn, I don't think it's this either. Nope, it's not this either. So, oh, you know what? Never mind. It may be this. Let me check. Settings. Nope, I don't think it's this. Let me go back to my admin. Let me try Azure Active Directory admin portal. Let's go there. Okay, so I think I could show this. It should be fine. So this is the Azure Active Directory admin center. Let's see. So let's go to Active Directory. Okay, so I have my tenant ID here. Let me go ahead and copy that. So let me notate this. Let me kind of, yeah, let me all right, so now that I have that, let's go to What was the other thing they needed? So we need... Damn, where's the... Oh, you know what? I have it on the other page. That's why it's up here. Alright, cool. So we have tenant ID. I'm not sure what it means. The name. I guess the name. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's my actual name. I don't know why I need the name. I shouldn't need the name anyways. But either way, so I have the ID. Then we have... for name, enter the parameter name this and leave the type as string. Okay, so that's odd. And then it says SharePoint tenant details into the value field. Choose create. Repeat the process with the other with everything. Okay, so let me get some of the more straightforward ones, which would be like the URL. I don't even care about the list. I only care about the files for now. But before we go there, it does ask for client ID, client secret. So let me look into that now. Client ID, client secret for that. So let's see, what can I find? So we got user. Let's see. Let me check something out. Oh, that's what it is. Yep, that makes sense. So let me go back to... I should be able to share this. I'm gonna go ahead and share it because it should be fine. And since this is again my IMLU account, it's kind of more somewhat like a sandbox account, right? I do have another Office 365 account which I use for my company. Now that one, again, that's really the reason why I created this account, because I want to make sure to, when I'm playing around and doing stuff like the way I am now, even if I show something, hopefully it shouldn't be an issue. So what I'm gonna have to do here is do a let me go to Active Directory. Let's go to app registration. I'm going to do a new registration. This user facing display name of the application, I'm going to call it user API. Just call it that, user API. Support account type, single tenant. That's fine. Return authentication. No, that's fine. Let's register. Let me go back. Where's my Active Directory? Here's my user. Add a let me copy this. Let's see what it is. So I got my client ID. This is my directory tenant ID. Let's see. So where's the application? Yep, here's our client ID. So I got this. Client ID. All right, so I have that. Let's see. And then go to certificates and secrets. Let's see, let's click on add certificate and secrets. Add a new secret. Expires, let's put 24 months. Enter, I'm just gonna call this AWS. So now we have our secret over here. Let me copy that. Let's see what else. Alright, so that's it. I got my secret. What else do I need? Let me see, where's my page at? So I need secret, I need client, so I have both. Tenant ID. So there are actually two, I realized. Let me go to app registration, go to the app. So I have my what's called this guy, tenant ID. Let me see if it's the same of what I had before. Yep, it is the same, so that's good. So I have those three IDs: tenant, secret, client. What else? And then we have file. It doesn't talk about it, but I'm gonna assume that this means maybe the URL path of where it's gonna connect to. And if that's the case, let me connect to SharePoint real quick. So as you can see, it's starting to make more sense as I'm kind of going through it, but there's a lot of settings that you would have to do on your side. So for sure, on your side, you will need to get with your admin, create what's called under Active Directory under your admin section, app registration. So we're kind of creating an app. You normally do this because by creating an app, you generate, instead of creating a user, for example, you create an app, and the app you would have again your client ID, secret ID, and then it could get utilized when it comes to um, single sign on and things of that nature with other applications and so on, without having to need a actual like a user profile. Um, but either way, I don't think we need this anymore. Let me minimize that. So we're gonna create a parameter, and then let's create the first one, which is gonna be the tenant ID. So let me copy that. Let's see, standard string data type. Then let me paste my value. Create parameter. Boom, there's one. Now let's create the next one. Next one is going to be the one thing that's kind of odd is based on their example. So I'm trying to make sense of it too. Is let me see real quick. So I get these parameters. Client ID for files, client ID for lists. I don't know why that almost seems like you're gonna have two different ones, but they're gonna be the same. So I don't quite get that. Sharepoint list. So this guy here says data set name, enter the Sharepoint list name or file name you want to ingest. Again, that to me that really doesn't make sense, because it almost seems like you're only getting one file back. Like, yeah, I don't really get that piece. Review detailed on final page and select the knowledge. Okay, either way, let me go ahead and set everything up. Sharepoint tenant. And again, I don't know what the hell. You know what? I think it says to leave it blank. I think I did see that. Read that in the documentation. It doesn't want a tenant, but it wants that field to be blank. But now that I think about it, I don't think you can leave it blank. Enter Sharepoint tenant detail into the value field. Leave the type as string. Enter Sharepoint tenant detail into the value field. Creeper. No, never mind. So where? Let's see. Office 365. Okay, so it is that. Just want to make sure. So that means my tenant name is my actual name, which is I am Lou. Got it. So that's what that is. So let me go ahead and copy that in here. Then of course my value would be my name. I am Lou. Let me create this. So I have that. The next one is going to be, I don't care about the list. I'm going to scrap that list. I want to do files. That's the only one. I need to see I guess I need to see if I could remove the other ones or not. But let's see. Let's do file. And let me go ahead and copy. What is this? Client ID. Create parameter. Cool. Now let's do secret. Cool. go. So we have that. And then the next thing we have URL file. Again, I'm going to assume that's the URL to where the data that my files. So let me see if that is the case. Let me go ahead and copy that. Okay. So now let me go back to where did I have? Man, do I have it in another window where? Let me see. Maybe I have it in a different window. It's not this, not this. It's not that. Let me close this out. I don't need that's something else I was working on for Azure. Damn, did I close out of it? Or no, there it goes. Here it goes right here. I don't know why I didn't see it. Let me see if it lets me leave that blank. I think I may have to put, let me go ahead and enter this in. I don't think I could remove it. This is client ID. And then we have, what is it? Secret. So let's see. So under secret, let's go ahead and put in our secret in as one of my parameters. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Doing pretty good. Just kind of going over some AWS stuff tonight. Relaxing, drinking some tequila, because that's, you know, what I always do every Friday. So talking Python, talking AWS, all that kind of stuff. So by all means, if you have any questions, just throw it in the chat, and yeah, man, be more than happy to try to answer any questions you may have. What else do I need? Or my list, URL list. Let me bring that in. Even though I don't have nothing, I don't think I have a list set up. When W, I'm not sure what that means. When W. Saturday here. Also, it's Saturday your time. Yeah, my time. I'm still Friday. It's Friday night. It's almost Saturday. 2 more hours. It'll be Saturday my time as well. So I'm Central time. Damn, what time is it? It's 11. My bad. 1 hour. 1 hour from now. When will you be announcing the giveaway winner? I actually did. I actually announced it last Friday, and my live stream on Friday. So that Friday, I announced the winner. We had three winners. 2 for the gift card, and 1 for the RAM. And I did a post on Twitch, so not Twitch, Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter if you want. So like updates like that, giveaways and who won, all that, I posted on Twitter, so you could like be up with all of that as well. But yeah, that was last week. I'm gonna have another giveaway this month as well, and that I will probably open up, start accepting entries probably another week and a half from now. So just be on the lookout on my video, and again, you can follow me on Twitter. I'll send a tweet out as well when the giveaway is open again, and then yeah, you're more than welcome to be part of that giveaway as well. But yeah, the giveaway will last Friday. Not this Friday, will last Friday. So let's do this. Let me just put this in here, and hopefully that should be fine. Okay, so now let me go back to, where was I? I think there it goes, here. And let's see if it takes it now. Nope. Why did it not take it? Unable to fetch parameters. Data lake group, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why. It's already there. I just created the parameters. My parameters. I don't think these need to be set to, no, they should not be set to public, so that's fine. I wonder if it's, let me go back. And let me go back. That's it. Forward. I am from India. I don't know, man. So how's everything with you? How's everything going with you in India? Things are going pretty good for you? Do you do any programming, any like AWS, Python, or anything? I have a few people, so I have a few contractors that help out on certain projects. People that I just kind of have met throughout, just in general, or people that I maybe I need to find. I mean, I have some employees, but I do have most of a lot of the time, you need somebody to help out for a small project or something. So one of the things I may end up doing, I'm still thinking about it, but I may end up doing is opening up some of the projects that I work on and try to put it out to some of my viewers that watch me, and that trying to learn that, at least know enough, right? They don't have to be experts or nothing, but that are have at least a good solid understanding of, let's say, Python and things of that nature, and probably do that, man. I think it will be something different for sure. Um, to to reach out to some of my followers, and ultimately, perhaps they'll get some experience as well, and especially if they're new, like they're trying to get their foot in the door as well. I know there's a few people that I get messages from that do ask, like, hey, how do I get my foot in the door, because they're brand new and it feels like, well, I don't have no experience, so nobody will hire me, but I know how to do the work, and how do I get experience, so just the challenges of getting experience. And a lot of the times as a programmer, if you don't got experience, then you could easily start doubting yourself. Am I really that good? Like, I don't know if I'm as good as these other guys. But at the end of the day, even the guys that are good, man, some of these guys as well, they know that they don't know everything, and you don't have to know everything. You just have to know enough for what you're doing, right? At the end of the day, um, get your foot in, and then get your experience. So let's see what happened here. So it went out, roll back, complete. What I want to do now, let's see if it actually works. Um, so that's what I should have done. Where do I go? Events, event bridge, rules. Nope, I still have this one rule that I created. Um, Hmm. Appreciate it. No problem, man. No problem. I don't have a PC. Can't afford. Are you like? Could you mention? You said yep for programming. What programming language do you code in? And do you like use somebody else's computer? I guess if you do code like a company computer when you go to the office, or I guess how do you code if you today? I guess do you have to like borrow somebody's computer? Um, Cause I would say right now, at least from a programming standpoint, like at least through and again, this is my own experience. Some years back, I was broke, and I was very limited on what I could buy. So I couldn't buy the fanciest computer or nothing. If anything, I probably had to buy a little cheap computer. Um, I remember for the company that I worked at the time back then, a couple of years back, they gave me like a company computer to work on, and I ultimately I was using that company computer to do whatever I like my stuff as well, my learnings or coding or whatever. Eventually, I ended up once I left that company, they took the computer back, and but I needed something. And I bought an old ass computer, man, but it did the job. I did some few minor upgrades, right? Added a little bit more RAM. It was an old processor. I think it was like a Gen 5 Intel processor. So it was some years back. What are we now? Like Gen 12 in Intel. So I mean the processor was probably good 9, 10 years old or so, maybe more, man. I'm not sure, but either way, got it real cheap. Got it for like 200-300 bucks maybe. And man, I used that computer for a couple of years, and I was able to do everything I needed to do coding wise. Wasn't a laptop; it was a desktop, but at least you know it allowed me to learn, to code, to things of that nature. And then eventually, started my business. The business started doing well. Then that's where it just started. And then I could afford better equipment, right? And but again, it's baby steps. At the end of the day, you gotta just try to use what you can, make do with it, and sometimes you gotta have a little bit of luck, man. I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta, sometimes I know things don't always fall in line, even if you do everything right. Sometimes certain countries, where you live in, it's become very challenging to actually get out of your situation because of government policies, things of that nature. So I mean, it's kind of tough sometimes, but you gotta keep pushing forward, man. Kind of keep trying to find opportunities. So there's a few people that I have talked to on India. I have actually gone on Zoom with them, and we talked. And one of them specifically, he was very what he ended up doing. He was pretty good, like in programming and stuff, and he actually helped me out on a few projects. And he was like, yeah, like he told me, like I'm starting, like he works for like another big company in India that does like programming, a lot of like programming work. And I guess he left them, but he started working on his own. And then of course now it's like he started building his own little team as he started getting more and more jobs. Some of like his friends that were learning how to code or did code, he started bringing them in onto his little business that he had. So now he had like 3 or 4 people, like his friends, that were now working for him, and it seemed like he was doing pretty good, man. Like again, they was, good. He was he understood the customers very well, and then he knew how to code and do make things happen. So everything just kind of worked out well. And yeah, man. I mean, things and again, sometimes that's kind of what it takes, right? Just get your feet kind of once you get going. It's hard, by all means, it's challenging, but if you're able to now like find clients on your own, especially from over there, maybe find some U.S. clients, and yeah, man, that's all it takes, little by little bit, build a relationship, right? Communicate, talk to them as well, get to know them, and a lot of the time, what happens, they'll come back you know, when they want more work done, especially if you do good work. Um, all right, guys. Let me see. Let me go. Where's my guide? There it goes. Is this the guide I was looking at? Nope, this is not it. Man, why do I keep losing my? Oh, it's up here on top. Um. Deploy the solution for a quick start. Deploy. This creates the required resource. Blah blah blah. So let me go to it. Maybe I think that's what happened. I created it. Let's see. Stack view giraffe. View stack. Complete. Nothing has been complete. Failed. Yep, it failed. Here's the ID. Events. There was a rollback. Delete completed. Oh, that's why, because they did a rollback. So we actually did create it. Initially, we failed creating it. Okay. Again, I don't think I need this though, but I see what it's doing, right? It's creating your. So it seems to be creating a Lambda execution row, glue service row, bucket, property bucket name cannot be empty if specified. So let me go. Can I edit it? I guess. Resource. Changes. Template. So I don't think I could make. I don't think I could edit this again. View an application manager. So the thing that I right now that I'm still little bit puzzled on is where is it again? Damn it, there it goes right here. Keep forgetting have its own page. It relates to this piece, right? So I know they provided a template. When I say they, I'm assuming it's Amazon that provided it. But if I go to their where is it? There goes. Cloud formation stack. So they provided a template here. This template, which I'm assuming they provided, as we make the configurations, it's generating. It should be creating a bucket, creating so on and so on. That's kind of what it should be doing. So let me click on it again. It's probably going to create another one, which is fine. They want to change the name to ETL2. Bucket name would be a new one. So call it Sharepoint ETL testing 2. See if it creates a bucket. Database SharePoint, blah blah blah. Data set, leave it like that. This for now. And next, rollback all stack resources, preserve successful provisions. And next, create stack. Let's acknowledge. Let's create stack. So let's see if it actually created everything. So it's creating, complete. So far, no errors. I think because my bucket, something was missing, something was blank. It's still going. Created glue service row. Bucket policy. Bucket policy. Created crawlers. So it seems like it's creating a few things. So now if I go to my S3, let's see, did it create any new buckets? Yep, there we go right there. Sharepoint ETL test 2. So it did create a new bucket. One for Cloud Trail scripts. There's my scripts that it created. One of them is called Sharepoint ETL. Update workflow. Let's see if there's anything else. What is let me download this. I want to see it. Sharepoint ETL. Open with Sublime Text. Let's see. So this is just taking the S3 file, then pretty much converting them to Parquet files. That's what this is doing. All right. What else? Okay, let's see if this is done already. Yep, this is done. Yes, this one. So this is done. Let me go to import resource to stack. No update, events. It created everything, it seems like. Okay, so now let's look at our AWS Glue. So this actually created a new workflow. So I didn't even have to create one. That created a workflow for me, which is this guy. This workflow had all the steps. So they provided the template for it that does it. Again, I'm not sure. And this is a piece that I would have to look into. But if I look at the template, so these are the parameter names they provided. And then, of course, the variables I'm passing in through the other system manager parameter module. Yep, there you go. See parameter string. So it's able, that should be able to connect to the whole process. So what this is doing, this is the, think of it as your template to, you could reuse and pretty much recreate new configurations, right? If you're going to be integrating with multiple SharePoints and they're going to be going to different buckets, this is where the template will kind of build everything out for you. Which it could be a good idea, but at the same time, it just depends, right? Because it is doing everything for you from a sense. So let's see what's part of here. If I go to triggers, do we have any triggers? There we go. So we have, how many triggers do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 triggers created. What are these triggers for? I can't see all the name. I don't know why this is not allowing me to move the columns over. Let me click on one and click on edit. So this is based on Apple ETL Okay, so it did base it off of that. No, my bad. It didn't base it off that. It based it off this one. SharePoint trigger data conversion. That's what it's from, that job. So now let me go to jobs. Let's see how many jobs do we have. So we have 3 jobs. We have actually 4 jobs. We have ingest glue job SharePoint. Let's see what this consists of. We look at the script. Get auth to token, which is again client ID, secret, so on. So this is a piece that it's going to be connecting to SharePoint. What are they using? It's using requests, pandas. So it's assigning all of our variables. Makes sense, right? Client ID, so on and so on. Okay, so that makes sense. Build header. Here's our SharePoint. Here's our URL, tenant, client ID, secret. Okay, this is to get our data to authenticate. It seems like get SharePoint file URL. So where is this coming from? SharePoint file URL. Okay, so it's based on a argument, and it say SharePoint file URL, SharePoint file URL dot find. Local file names, request.get, read Excel, then to CSV. So this must, what is this again? Could this cannot be for any files. This seems to be more directed to Excel. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I know it's kind of hard to see. Let's see. Then we got get SharePoint list, which again I don't care much about that. I will probably just delete that from this file because I don't need that. What else? Ingest type file. Unable to get SharePoint files. Get SharePoint file, SharePoint URL file. So this goes back to where is that? We saw that up here. SharePoint URL file. So this kind of goes back to one of the arguments parameter that we had. SharePoint URL file. So I didn't specify an actual file. I just specified the folder on what I would want it to look for, and I'm wondering if that's going to be an issue because, man, I have too many windows open. Let me close some of these out. So this is to authenticate. This is a get SharePoint file, SP file URL, which is a name that it's using, but where is this being called at? Get SharePoint, there we go, get SharePoint file, which happens to be SharePoint URL file. And that's the piece I don't like because the way this is set up right now, it's pretty much looking for one file only at a time, which is not ideal because we don't want one file. We want whatever exists there, right? All the files. So let's see. And this is just using the request package to pretty much authenticate and connect. Let me just run this. I'm just curious. I just want to run it. I expect it to fail, to be honest with you, but I just want to see what error message I get. Run job. What time is it? Damn, it's already 11:30. Well, let's just run this. So what they did here, based on kind of the direction that they provided, like AWS provided, they use cloud formation, which is, think of it as your script, your configuration to deploy S3 buckets, jobs, AWS glue jobs, whatever, all of the different changes that are occurring. And it makes sense, right? I never used it, but I was aware of it. Just I never really looked into it. But we used one of the templates they provided when it came to the Sharepoint integration to AWS. So in that template that they provided, it kind of had fields for us to enter in our parameters, which ultimately we had to set up parameters in AWS system management parameter module. And then when you run it again, it generated, like in this case, it generated this this job. And again, I knew it was going to fail. I just wanted to see what error, why they failed. Let's see, warning, blah blah blah. List, client ID list, which that makes sense because I think I put in something wrong there anyways. Error, unable to get SharePoint lists. That makes perfect sense because I really don't have, I should have removed it. So let's go to scripts, edit scripts. I don't need that. I'm not going to be accessing SharePoint lists. So in this case, it's file, if, else, list. I don't have list. I'm actually just going to remove this out the way. I don't want to do nothing, or maybe comment it out. There you go. Just comment it out. This function for list, I'm going to just comment it out as well. And just look at files. Again, I didn't provide a file. I just provided the folder where all the files should be at. So I'm just curious if it would run, like if it would actually pull all the files in, which I'm not sure, but we'll see in a minute. How long did this take? 52 seconds. I should have checked to see how do they configure this job. So they configured 3 concurrents. So they're using, what are they using? PowerShell. And then they pass in those variables in, which makes sense. Okay, so hopefully we'll find out in a minute or two, or a few seconds, if it failed or not. Succeeded. Okay, so now this succeeded. Let's see, do we have any files in our... Damn it, I have too many tabs open. Let's go to S3. I didn't think I closed out of that, but I guess I did. It should be under this guy. No, where is it? You know what? It's not going to be under here. Where is it downloading it to? I just thought about that. Scripts. What bucket is it putting this under? Under get files. Let's see. Get files. Landing bucket. Then upload to an S3 bucket. So what is my landing bucket? So let's see what that is. Edit job. With my parameters, landing bucket. Here it goes. So it is this guy, Sharepoint. Okay, so now let's go back to that. Should have dropped it in here. But again, I think it seems to be looking for Excel files though. I mean, do I have an Excel file? Let me check if I do or if I don't. If I don't, let me open up one of these the CSV file and let me save this as Excel. Alright, so I have this saved. Let me put it in here. And the other thing too, this is what I should have done. I guess we could try it out as we're looking at it. Is to me, it almost seems like it wants the URL for the file, not for the folder. Which, if that's the case, I mean, we could confirm that is the case, but that's what it seems like. So where is it at? Sharepoint URL file. So this is what it shows. And then this is the URL for the file. So let's just try this and see if that is what happens here. I mean, it did run successfully. So let's run this right quick, run job. I just want to see that it works. It should work in my mind, but I don't think this is what we actually want though either, because what that means is you would have to provide it to the parameter. Like, it's looking for one file at a time kind of deal. So you know what this actually would work for in my mind would be, if you have a SharePoint list and people are adding to that list, right? So because you have one list that people are adding to in SharePoint, like adding new records, then that makes sense. You just pull that SharePoint list, it'll get dropped to an S3 bucket, and if there's changes to it, that is where your event bridge comes in and enables to see that, hey, things changed or the events changed. Then it's able to re-trigger your job and get it to work. That makes sense. Now, when it comes to SharePoint, if you only have one file and people are adding to that file, like updating, you want to bring in that file, then this makes sense as well. At least I think it makes sense, right? We'll see if it actually does. There goes, succeeded. Let's go to SharePoint, refresh. Nope, I still don't see nothing here. I was expecting the file to show up, but it did not. Um, pass the result token, loop through, save file as XLS without adding column headers only once. Again, this is a starting point. This could be modified to kind of be more customized for sure. But just looking at it the way how they're using it is fetch file. It's only fetching one file at a time. This method would take two parameters that we use to perform REST API connection to SharePoint server and copy the file to S3, which I get, right. It is copying to an S3. Let's see. Let's look at the logs right quick. If I could see something in the logs. Successfully installed. That's not what I care about. So these are all our jar variables that it's passing in. I need list name. Where I thought I saw, how is it using list name? That's actually wrong, but let me see, how is it using list name? So how is that being utilized? Let's see. So it's under okay, so it's not being utilized. Okay, so that's fine. Strictly for list, has nothing to do with files. For file, SharePoint URL file, and that's what this guy is, SharePoint URL file, which I did take a look at it already. If we go to edit job, let's look at the parameters. SharePoint URL file, where is it at? There it goes. Which is this guy. This is the URL for the actual file. Let me see, a copy direct link. Let's see if this. Okay, so maybe this seems more like it. There it goes. I think this is it. Let me save. Let's run it one more time. Run job. I just want to make sure that it does download. That's the first step, right? And if it does, hey, this is for sure. Again, all it's doing. So when you look at the code that I put together, and the code that we have here, a lot of the concepts are the same thing. Now, one of the big differences is, of course, my code, I'm using Sharepoint. In this code, they're just using plain old the request package. So it's a little bit more basic for sure, and we're just doing very basic stuff at the end of the day. The Sharepoint does come with other methods already that makes it easier trying to delete and stuff, things of that nature. But I'm assuming they use a request in this purpose probably because of third-party packages. Still nothing. I don't see nothing showing up in here. And that's where it should have went too. Not over here. Yep, that makes sense. It's not going to be over here. It would have been this guy. And I don't see nothing. Hmm. So when I look at when it comes to the SharePoint site, where is it at? So this is reading. So it should be saving it temp in the temp section. Then it says upload file to temp.csv format, blah blah blah. Landing bucket, which it is the right bucket. And then we have prefix. It's destination prefix os.pass.split local file name, blah blah blah. So what is this destination prefix? Then it has it as load to temp. Then we have our bucket. So where is it loading it to? Because what I see there's no temp here. Let's look at our glue temporary files. There's nothing in there either. Script files, root. No, those are old. Nothing in there either. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. How about yourself? How's your Friday night going? Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at the script because it doesn't make sense. The bucket is valid. I was able to see that when I go to edit jobs. Appreciate it. Let's see. Where's my bucket at again? Landing bucket. Yep, this is the right bucket, so that's fine. Ingestive type, we have list. Oh, is this it right here? This needs to be file, not list. Man, I bet you that's what it was. Let me run job again. Again, I think what they did here, when the way they configured the template to generate the job, they kind of made it dynamic. It could be a list or a file, but I don't think it's not dynamic though. It's not like you run one job and it's pulling from a file and a list. It could only do one or the other. So in my case, I had to specify the file name, which I did now. Then I had to specify to run the ingestion for file, which it would not do. There goes, it failed. So what happened here? Let me look at the script. Ingestive type equals file, which is what I had because I wanted to run that. So let's see what the error message is all about. History, error, what happened here? Error, unable to get SharePoint file. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Unable to get SharePoint file. So let's see what's going on here. Let me click on the folder. See if that actually does it. I'm going to go, let's see, let's edit job, change parameters. Where is it at? SharePoint URL file. Let me make it the folder pass now. And let's run job. So if it failed, it should fail kind of quickly, right? Other one fell 17 seconds. So let's see if it failed or not. Yep, it failed. So I'm pretty sure it'll be the same thing related to that error. Unable to get SharePoint. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so now let me try something else. Let me click on the file. Let's see if this actually works. Edit job. There goes the URL file. Save. And now let's run job again. If it failed, it should fail pretty quickly anyways. So, man, it's already down. Been streaming for almost 3 hours. Alright, so after this test, I think we'll call it a night. But based on what I'm seeing now, this is an option. The thing that I don't like about it though is just the way. Again, I think we could tweak it by all means, but the way it's configured is kind of more designed on a one file basis. So again, if you're gonna be pulling a SharePoint list because people are adding to it, if you're gonna be pulling one file only, right? I think this would actually work. I could see it now how things are connecting and how they would actually work. So I see it, but if you're gonna be pulling, you're gonna have scenarios where maybe you're pulling a folder that has like 100 files in it, right, or whatever it may be. Then that's kind of where the way it's set up right now would not work. It would have to be a different method to it. I know, like the way that I did it on my video, it was kind of more designed for that, to be able to put all the files in a folder. But I think for that is where I think Lambda will come in, because you could easily put that in the Lambda function and then have the third-party packages installed, which would be SharePlump, and then kind of get somewhat the same result in ways. Somewhat, I say somewhat because there will be some tweaking I think involved, but nevertheless though, we'll play around with this. We'll try to get this solved first, and once we get this solved, we try other scenarios and kind of go from there. But it was some good learnings, man. Again, there's a few things that I actually played around with today that I really never played around with before, like System Manager. So that kind of makes sense now with the variables, and then the cloud formation. I have always been aware of it. I just never really had a need to build out and play around with it. But I kind of get it though. This one for me, my mind, it's very ideal when you're always implementing something repetitive, but the only thing that changes could be like it's a new bucket, and then you have new jobs, but you could create a template in advance that again, like the way we did it, you run it and it'll create your bucket, it'll create your glue job, it'll create X, Y, and Z, right? It could set up, it could create a Redshift environment, or it could create a new database. You could build all of that in one configuration, and then of course you just fill in your parameters or your variables or whatever. Then it'll populate those namings, the bucket name and all that kind of stuff. So this is very interesting from that aspect of it, for sure. So, and again, guys, man, it was good learning. It's always fun, right, to learn something new, play around, kind of trying different things. There's, in programming and technology, there's always more than one way to do things. And always, it just a lot of the times, at least when the different ways, then you could kind of decide which option you prefer to, which path you prefer to take, right? It's always good to have more than one option. So again, guys, man, thanks for watching. Give me a like, appreciate it, man. I do enjoy these Fridays, I really do. And we'll be on again Tuesday going forward. I'm going to be streaming earlier in the day. I believe the schedule is from like 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Tuesdays. And the main reason why I'm doing the Tuesdays early now, it's for different reasons. there's a few people that I know I've been messaging through email, and they're actually international people. So every time I talk to them, and I'm like, yeah, you could join on the live stream, and we could try to solve any problems you have. They're like, oh man, it's too late. It's like 4 in the morning my time or whatever it is, because they're international, like Australia. Some people that I message with, UK, places like that. So I'm gonna do one earlier, and it makes it more balanced for either people here in the U.S. I mean, normally it's during like people lunchtime or whatever, so they could join in if they wanna need some quick help or whatever, or ask questions. And also for the international people that have been emailing me, they could also have an opportunity to kind of join. And if they have any issues or questions, we could try to walk through and try to solve some of the problems. But Friday, they're still gonna stay the same, 9 p.m., 11 p.m. Central. Again, guys, appreciate it. And